Good morning everyone, and welcome to Random Info Corner. I am your host, Meanie Tiny, and today we will be talking about the history behind the Lorax. Instead of explaining what the Lorax is about, I will leave you guys a link in the description box of a YouTuber by the name Forshing. He compares the 1972 and the 2012 Lorax films. He even compares the two books that we will be talking about today, the Lorax and Truax. So let's begin all the way back to 1970. Unfortunately, Dr. Seuss never confirmed the true inspiration behind the book, but we can do our own investigation. Dr. Seuss's home was built in the forest in La Jolla, California. He was notoriously outspoken about his disdain for all the construction going around. With the book, we see just that, a home in the forest soon overtaken by construction. There was a Monterey cypress tree which stood alone in the valley. This tree was dubbed by the locals the Lorax tree. It was tall, and the leaves somewhat resembled to that of the truffula tree in the book. With all of this, it could be the spark for him to start writing an environmental book. But he soon found out that most of these books were dry and preachy. Being in a rut, his wife Audrey convinced him to take a trip to Kenya in Africa. There, he saw a group of monkeys called the Patos monkeys. These monkeys were around the whistling torn acacia trees. These trees made up to about 80% of the monkeys' diet. In the book, we see that the trees are also used by the creatures. They too were dependent on the trees that gave them everything they needed. Some people speculate that the monkey was also inspiration of the Lorax himself, with the orange coat and the mustache the monkeys had. While on his trip in the afternoon, he wrote about 90% of the book. Jumping forward to 1971, we have the book, The Lorax. Unfortunately, the book was not a big success when it came out. It was different than the others that came before. It was more serious, and the color palettes were darker than usual. It was also published around the time Earth Day and the ecology movement were gaining counterculture traction. But that did not discourage Dr. Seuss. He wrote a story he felt needed to be told. Because of this, his old colleagues from the Snafu days wanted to animate his work. More on that in future videos. Today, let's jump forward to 1972. The Lorax film came out 7 months after the book was published, keeping the story close to the original. The making of the film was a breeze, especially when it is the fourth Dr. Seuss's film the company has produced. The staff and Dr. Seuss go way back, and everyone knew one another, so they each understood what they wanted from the other. DePatie Freleng released the film with Universal, thus winning 2 awards for the film. But alas, trouble rises again in 1989. When children in Laytonville, California would come home from school and ask their parents if what they are doing in the lumber industry is bad, most of the parents felt attacked by the sudden question. One of them, being Bailey family, petitioned for the book to be banned. They ended up succeeding, since the Bailey family owned half of the Laytonville school board. They were able to remove the book as a required reading, especially for second graders, so you wouldn't be able to find a copy within 100 miles. Instead, you had a different book to read in 1995. The book that parodied the Lorax. This book portrayed a completely different message than that of the Lorax. The character roles were also reversed. The logger was the good guy, and Garbark was the bad guy. Sure, it was their version of how they wanted the story to go, by viewing themselves as the heroes and not as the bad guys. But regardless, everyone has their version of the Lorax that they like, even if we jump ahead to 2012. This was the studio's third Dr. Seuss's film. They too released the film with Universal and had received a little over $70 million over the weekend, making the film #1 at the box office. Yet, There were mixed reviews. People hating it because it was 3D and not 2D. The characters had a backstory. It was too silly. Regardless, everyone had their opinions just like before. But there is one difference. This film accidentally helped create, and they had no intention at all. People started shipping the sweet, innocent Onceler with his greedy self called Greedler. The reason for this is simple. There was no other male character. Sure, we have his dad, Ted, and even the Lorax himself. But the fandom were Fujoshis, so they needed someone attractive. To them, a future Onceler meeting with the past Onceler made perfect sense. It started on Tumblr as people having fun being certain characters, such as Swag Onceler, Steampunk Onceler, The Oneler. Then it grew out of hand with the many fanfictions and fan arts. Today, everything seems to have calmed down until the year 2019. The real tree that we mentioned earlier has fallen in 2019. It actually fell on its own due to old age. It was estimated to be about 100 years old when it hit the ground. This concludes the entire Lorax history so far. But who knows what the future may hold? All we know is that everyone has a different take from the Lorax, whether it be a lesson, a parody, or even a style. If you need reassurance, you can always look in the description box below. Share this knowledge with other people who might be interested. And remember, I got your back. This has been your host, Mini Tiny, wishing you a breezy day.